What's up guys, Steve here, 6A Ranch. I'm going to do a quick review video of this Agri-Fab 45-0463 pull behind spreader. This thing can be pulled behind a lawnmower like we got right over there. UTV, I've seen people use four-wheelers with these things, and they're very handy to have around. You don't have to have a big yard to need one of these. If you've ever used one of those walk behind spreaders or a hand spreader to spread stuff around your property, it can be pretty tedious work, and it's really hard sometimes to get a real good even spread. Well, this takes a lot of the guesswork out of it, and you get to sit on your butt while you're spreading it, and I like easy. So I want to show you guys a little bit about this spreader. And to follow up on this video, we're going to do a video of us spreading ryegrass out in our pasture, which is actually what we bought this for, because I didn't want to go spread all that by hand. And so y'all look out for the next video as well. So on the build of this thing, Beautiful actually put this thing almost completely together by herself. She did a pretty dang good job. I looked through the directions. I was back in the office working when she was putting this thing together. I came out and helped her a couple times, but she pretty much did the whole thing by herself. It was a pretty painful build from what I understand. Instructions aren't real clear. The quality is not that great. So Agri-Fab, if you're listening, get us better directions. All right, guys. It took about an hour and a half, I believe, to get this thing put together. But I can say that as far as the build quality goes, it seems to be pretty decent. I mean, it's not, definitely not your top of the line, but it's not cheap quality materials either. The bar's pretty solid, the pretty good nuts and bolts, all that good stuff looks pretty beefy on here. So hopefully it'll last, hopefully it'll hold up. And of course we're going to keep it inside. I think if we were to keep this outside, it'd probably rust in no time, but we're going to keep this in the shop somewhere and out of the elements, and I think it's going to hold up pretty good. Before I forget, there are two attachments that I'm aware of that you can buy for these. We didn't buy them because we don't need them. One of them is a cover, which I could see being pretty handy if you've got some material in here, seed, fertilizer, whatever, and you're not able to finish the job, or you're worried about rain, or heck, even if it is raining while you spread, you don't want the material in here to get wet. So a cover would come in handy for that. There's also a material deflector that you can put down here on either side, I believe. And that's going to be useful if you're right up against, say, a house, you're spreading fertilizer in the yard, or maybe up against a fence line in the pasture and you don't want to give the neighbors free grass or whatever, you know. So I could see that coming in handy. First thing I want to point out, guys, is Agri-Fab is a U.S. company. I like to buy local. If I can't buy local, I like to buy U.S. So that's a big plus. We'll go from front to back. Got your standard hitch. Selector here. This is the off position. You can adjust it here with a wing nut back and forth depending on how much material you want to distribute at one time, and of course the size of your material. And it's pretty self-explanatory. You can see the little door open and close there. Works exactly the same as a hand spreader or any other type of spreader that you guys have probably used in the past. So there's nothing special about that, but it is nice that it's got an off. And the reason it needs an off is there's no way to disengage. I'll show you guys around the back. There's no way to disengage this. This is attached to the shaft here through that gearbox. So as long as this wheel's turning, meaning if you're moving this thing, this is going to be turning. So closing that door is what keeps the material from flying around everywhere. So there's no way to disengage that. So it's important that it's got that off switch. Believe it or not, there are some of these that actually do not have an off. So anytime you drive this thing, it's throwing material out. So that really limits what you can do, you know, where you can do it at and where you can fill this thing at. So I like that feature. There are some people online that have complained that the gearbox and the spreader here is plastic. Hopefully they hold up well for us. It's brand new, so I don't know. Time will tell on that. Supposedly Agri-Fab has a pretty good warranty process as well, so hopefully that's true. I want to point out the tires. They're pretty beefy, and it's got a pretty wide wheelbase. We've taken this out and tested it. I spread a little bit of ryegrass with it already, and it hugs the terrain pretty well. And some of the cheaper ones will have a narrower wheelbase and even some cheap plastic wheels, and they're not going to get good traction out there, especially in a pasture setting like what we've got out there. Man, that sucker is rough. All the way from Hurricane Harvey, man, we rutted that sucker all up, pulling trees and stuff out. So this seems to get pretty good traction, so I'm happy about that. And spread wise, it's going to depend on your setting up front and the size of material. All that stuff factors in, and then of course how fast you go. The faster you go, obviously the faster this is going to spin. But at a steady pace, we get a good 4 feet of coverage out of the back of this thing, which is pretty good. And I'll try to rig this camera up here in a little bit and kind of show you guys how well it spreads. All right, so for the hitch, all it is, again, just your standard little pin hitch. It's as simple as that. One thing I forgot to show you guys is there's a handy little guide chart on the back. I'd take it with a grain of salt. It's really going to depend on your terrain, how fast you go, things like that. But there's some little rough guides here. All right, guys, that's it. That's all we got for today. I just wanted to show you a quick review on that thing. We really like it so far. Hopefully you enjoyed some of the footage of the spreading and maybe give you a little bit of idea how the thing operates and how well it works. I've had a little bit of trouble figuring out the right setting for this ryegrass in our pasture. There have been times I've had it at 5 and it did okay, and then there are times I had it all the way up to 8 and it did really well. But the problem with a really high setting is when you stop to check on it or sit still, the seed just pours out because the opening is just so big, right? So you got to be careful with that. And so you guys, you're just gonna have to play with it, figure out which one of the settings is gonna do the best as far as whatever the type of material you're putting out. I found the sweet spot somewhere around 7 to 8, as long as I'm going at a pretty decent rate. Puts a really thick coat of ryegrass seed out in the pasture, which is exactly what we're looking for in this application here. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, I'd appreciate it if you'd like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys on the next video.